here. You can go to PowerPoints for lecture. And here's the intro. Okay, so here we are. An introduction to anatomy and physiology. So all living things grow. And I'm going to go through these with emphasis on the pictures, okay? So your job is I would read all the PowerPoints before lecture because I'm just going to expect you to read the text. So know the difference between an anatomist and a physiologist. Know what gross anatomy is. What's microscopic anatomy? Know what these terms mean. So we all start from chemicals. And we put chemicals together to build cells, cells together to be tissues, tissues to build organs, organ systems, and we build an organism. Okay, so this goes through all of the systems, integument, and so on. And this shows from atoms to organ level to organ. We'll talk in this class, we're going to talk about skeletal, muscular, nervous, and integumentary. AMP2 covers the rest. Okay, the integumentary system is all your skin. Skeletal system is them bones, them bones. You got a bunch of bones. We'll have to know a lot of these bones. We'll learn a bunch of muscles. We'll learn about the brain and the spinal cord, the peripheral nervous system, and so on. We'll not learn about the endocrine system in this course. So we don't have to worry about that. Okay. So the total of 11 organ systems, they all work together and they communicate with one another and exchange information and materials. But what is homeostasis? This is a very important concept. Homeostasis means that internal conditions are maintained. Everybody knows that the temperature is maintained at around 37 degrees centigrade. Ionic concentrations of sodium, potassium, calcium are maintained at set concentrations, and blood sugar levels and so on, and hormone levels and other materials. What homeostasis does is keeps temperature, ionic concentrations at a set time. Okay. Set value. Okay. Regulation depends upon a receptor. Everybody knows that your body is constantly monitoring how your skin temperature. So a receptor is going to tell your brain and your central nervous system, suppose you're getting very cold. The effector is going to start your shivering and moving your muscles and maybe getting out of the cold. So you have to have a receiving unit that tells the central nervous system what is happening, and you have to have an effector that helps adjust. So suppose it's very cold and windy. Your central nervous system senses that your skin is getting cold. The effectors will be the muscles shivering, and maybe you change your behavior and get out of the cold. Okay? Stable internal conditions. Let's talk about, we talked about that. Okay, so a receptor is the thermometer. The control center is the brain. In this case, if it gets hot in a room, in order to keep the temperature, say at 74 or 28, the air conditioning goes on. That's the effector in the response. So negative feedback negates the disturbance. So you're getting cold, the wind's blowing, the temperature's dropping. Uh, you put on a jacket, or you start to shiver, or you go inside. So it negates the disturbance because everybody knows you can die from uh, hypothermia. If you stay outside too long, if your temperature drops below 37 degrees centigrade, you'll begin to get sleepy and you'll wake up an icicle, but you'll be dead. So homeostasis maintains uh, temperature, pH, chemical concentrations, and so on. So here's uh, a summary of what can happen. The receptor, okay, first, if the temperature rises on the left here, you can have a receptor. You begin to sweat. Blood vessels will move blood to the skin, and you'll have these changes, and it'll reduce the temperature. Just the opposite happens if uh, the temperature falls below 37.2. So the change in temperature is negated and returned to the set temperature that your body wants. This is a focus on body temperature rise. So make sure you know about receptor, control center, effector, and response and stimulus. Here's where the body temperature falls. Pay attention to uh, how you're going to warm yourself up. Decrease blood flow to the skin, decrease sweating, shivering, and so on. Here's a summary of that same process. Now we have positive feedback. The classic examples of positive feedback is blood clotting and giving birth. So positive feedback reinforces the stimulus. So if you have a gash in your skin and you begin to bleed, as long as it's not very, very big or very, very deep, clotting is going to take place and you're going to have a blood clot form, and that rapidly completes the critical process. So if you have a break in a blood vessel, you have these steps to stop the bleeding. Otherwise, you would bleed to death. If you can't maintain your values of blood flow and blood volume and temperature, you're not going to survive and you're going to be sick. So all of our physiological systems, digestion, respiration, urination, cardiovascular, nervous, they all work together to check on the values of pH and temperature and so on and adjust the internal conditions. Okay? You should know that this is anatomical position. You're going to have to know all these terms. So you should learn all of these terms. Anatomical position is feet flat, hands palms facing, forward, thumbs out, that's anatomical position. This is from the rear, so you should know what the back of the knee is, popliteal, so on calf, you should know these terms. Okay? The chest is divided into 4 quadrants, abdominal pelvic quadrants. Know those. There'll be web-assigned questions on these. Regions, epigastric above the stomach, umbilical region above the umbilicus, hypogastric below the gastric area, and so on. The right hypochondriac means that it's below the ribs. The left hypochondriac means it's below the left ribs. Lumbars on either side of the lumbar vertebra. Have an idea where the various organs are? Okay. You should know these terms. Take a look at those. So obviously no right and left. Superior is up toward the top, inferior toward the bottom, distal away from the central mass of the body, proximal closer to the medial area, lateral versus medial, and so on. Dorsal is the same as posterior. Ventral is the same as anterior. We'll get these terms straight. We got to know also sectional anatomy. If I had a chainsaw and I cut this poor woman in half and I separated her top from her bottom, that would be a transverse plane. If I separated her back from her front or from her posterior anterior, that would be a frontal plane. If I sliced her down the middle so that the left and right side fell apart, that would be a sagittal plane. Okay, so we should be familiar with the pleural cavity, the pericardial cavity, and the abdominal pelvic cavity. We'll learn about those, x-rays. So that sums it up for tonight. So we're going to stop recording. I hope we're going to stop recording. It would be nice. Let me do that. Okay, let's just close this PowerPoint. Go back to the meet. Go here. Click there. Stop recording.